all the worries, all the fears, all the stuff that is occupying our mind. And so, even though this presence is limitless, timeless, eternal, through identification, we appear to assume the limitations. Your mind can take you many places in the world, but it can't take you back to the consciousness from which it came. Our biggest karmic blocks are the beliefs that are keeping us from seeing that we are already whole. What is the single truth that, if known, would solve everything?
Kamini, welcome to the podcast, or Kamini, I should say. I do apologize.
No worries, you got it.
First question for you. I love kicking it off with this is that if you were at an intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a complete stranger and they asked you what you did for a living, how would you respond?
Ah, well, I would say I help people find inner peace. And I'll give a little bit of background on that because actually I grew up as a daughter of a yoga master and but decided kind of in my late teens, early 20s that I wanted to be a diplomat. And it was actually with studying international relations and interning at the UN in Switzerland that led me to become disillusioned, to kind of lose my way, to get depressed. And that's when I picked up the teachings that I learned from my father as a young person. And that's when I really realized that true peace begins with inner peace. So that's why I would say I help people uh, find their inner
A
peace.
bit.
I'm a diplomat. I think of myself as a diplomat of inner
No, I
peace.
love it. And like I said off air, the moment I stumbled across your work, I had to get you on instantly and your message and what you share. And I got to ask you this question as well. I just came in because, like, I grew up in the valleys of Wales, and I can assure you there wasn't even a yoga studio. I had no idea of any spirituality concepts or anything, and my life looks very different these days. So I have to ask you, what was it like growing up with a yoga master? Like, was that from day dot? You've always been exposed to this world?
Pretty much, yeah. So my father started a yoga, just a very small yoga society in Philadelphia in the US before I was born. And so by the time I was born, he was already running yoga classes. And then eventually that became a yoga center when I was 7 years old. So I grew up listening to chanting every night, fell asleep on my mom's lap listening to my dad's teachings. So it definitely got in there somewhere. Um, and it's interesting because you don't really realize at the time how different your upbringing is because of course it's yours. It's only in retrospect that you go back and you go, "Huh, I guess not everybody has, evening talks or is chanting every night or is experiencing kundalini and you're seeing people have these experiences." So yeah, very different, and I feel very gifted to have received it and gotten it. And at the same time, I feel like even though we may be exposed to it, it's like we have to make it ours, our own wisdom through our own sometimes painful experiences.
Yeah. What do you think the essence is of all that work then? Is it really to come back to inner peace? Because when I, from an outsider looking in, obviously I've been exploring more and more, but when I first kind of look at the yogic world and all that philosophy, being a Welshman, it just feels so big and it feels there's so many concepts and we get lost in even the philosophy, or is this just for exercise or move the body, or actually there's a much deeper connection to source that's at the essence of everything, you know?
There really is, yeah, and I would definitely agree that over time that the deeper meaning, at least in some arenas, has gotten lost. And what I like to say is it's almost like we've got 2 main paths. One is what I call the armchair yogis who know the scriptures inside and out. They can tell you the 23 different translations of the scriptures. But the scriptures are really a roadmap. They're a path or a guidepost to a certain destination. And then you have other people who are like, "There's a path? Oh, well, we don't need a guidebook. Let's just go and see what happens along the way. And, oh, by the way, what are we doing again?" Um, but what I find is that the real beauty is where these 2 come together, where we understand, what is yoga all about? Is it about inner peace? What is it about? And we can talk about that. And then walking the path using practices like yoga nidra, something else that I teach, to actually practice it, which then informs our understanding of the philosophy of yoga.
Hmm. And for you to really embody that, did you find that you had to go through, because you mentioned depression, you mentioned you going into studying and getting a diploma and, and going down the Western route, like almost have to feel what that feels like to then really appreciate the teachings?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are other people who just, they get it and it's a one and done kind of situation. But for me, it definitely, I needed to move away. I needed to discover, kind of lose it and then rediscover it on my own to make it my own. Otherwise, for me, it's just information, but it's not something we've embodied it. And I do think that there's a level of human suffering and pain that is needed sometimes to knock us on the head and wake us up
Mm.
if we take it that way.
Yeah, there's certainly, I know on my journey, I certainly had a feeling to, um, it helps me feel into gratitude. Like I can be fully grateful for things or feel at peace because I know what the other side has truly felt like as well. So it's given me this contrast to lean into and start to actually deeply appreciate, where I don't think I would have got there without it on reflection.
Absolutely. And I think it's also it's okay, which one do I want to live in? Which is the world that I want to live in? The one that feels like I've got too many thoughts in my head and getting drawn into the whirlpool of doom and depression, or the one where we start to realize that we actually play a role in we're the creator of our own life, and kind of the choice is ours, and which one do we want?
Yeah. Well, how do we start to get to that, to actually start to take ownership back, to really start to take our power and realize that we are the creator, we are the center point, we are at the epicenter of creation? Because if our world is external and it's very easy to get sucked into the world is just going to put at the moment, not that I buy into that, but if I don't develop and nurture it in a practice and realize that everything I have is within me, it's it's challenging. Like, where do we start? How do you look at it? Even the relationship with our consciousness, our energy, who we are, where we're going.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what I imagine is that the yogis were a lot like us. They suffered just like us. I mean, they same SHIT, different day. But the drama was there, the craziness of the world was there. And they were trying to answer the question, what is the single truth that, if known, would solve everything? That's what they were looking for. Which is a pretty amazing
Wow.
question because are you right? Because typically we're trying to, well, I'm gonna solve this problem with money. I'm gonna solve this problem by getting more fit. I'm gonna solve the and so we try to solve them individually. And they were looking at what is the cause of my human suffering and what is the one thing that if I knew it would help me out of my suffering. And so it really speaks to what you were just saying, which is consciousness. And so if we imagine that really what the yogis were saying is that we are like this sky. We are the sky of awareness through which these clouds of human experience have been moving. Even the craziness of the world are like clouds moving by. Or, that you are the one watching these things. You are there. The essence of you, the presence that you are, is there before these things are there. They are there while the clouds are there, and that presence will be there when they're gone. But the problem is that we become so identified with the clouds moving through that we have forgotten that we are this omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient sky, the presence itself, and we have become identified with the worry, the fear, the insecurity, the drama that's moving through. And so even though this presence is limitless, timeless, eternal, through identification, we appear to assume the limitations of whatever happens to be passing through
Mm.
awareness. And so the answer of yoga and all of the practices of yoga really is remember the presence that you are, and you will be spontaneously, effortlessly, and automatically free of all clouds moving through. That's the core practice.
That's it. That is a brilliant question, by the way. I never give me goosebumps when you said it. It's like, of course, right? So, with that in mind, what you say, and I can only kind of reflect back on my journey, is that, but half the time we need evidence. We need evidence that we are more than this physical vessel, and that there's far more to this vastness of consciousness in the universe than meets the eye. But if we haven't experienced it or haven't felt it before, it can be very challenging to get beyond the storm clouds to rise above. To know that, like that almost has to be a whole lot of faith or surrender into that to allow to begin to embody that, as you say, and it's not some recited practice that we just know from the mind.
Absolutely. And well, two things. One is that it doesn't work to just tell ourselves, right? I'm the presence, I'm the cloud, I'm the sky, the clouds are what moving through. It has to be experientially known. So number one. And number two is that brings to the second thing that you were talking about, which is energy. And really, energy is a visible, more tangible form of this consciousness that we're talking about, this presence that we're talking about. And we can feel this presence in our body as energy. We feel it as sensation. And I know you know what I'm talking about. That,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah. It can feel it's different for different people, but it can feel like a heaviness, like a blanket of silence descending over you. You can lose all sense of time, where things that you lose your sense of time because you're out of your mind. You're in an altered state. You can feel streaming and tingling moving through your body, like surges of electricity moving through. These are all signs that consciousness made visible as energy in your body is moving through. So it helps us because it gives us something more tangible to hold on to rather than just kind of going on faith that something's there.
Yeah, this it starts to open up. I mean, like I spoke to you before, I felt that Kundalini rise and that energy that was. I did not actually know what it. I didn't. I hadn't heard that word before when it was happening, and it was just something from. I don't know. It's as if my soul was calling me forward because I was leaning into meditation. I was leaning into different practices, and this was just a byproduct of like you say, getting beyond the density of human form or the clouds passing by or whatever you like to call it. And once I started to move, but it can also be unnerving, the energy as well, because if we haven't experienced it before, it's like you said, the shit, same shit, different day kind of thing. It brings up a whole lot of it as well. And I'd love to explore your philosophies and thoughts around what that is, what it's actually bringing up. How is that clearing it? How does that actually affect our daily lives if we're not even aware of it? Because we tend to identify with our emotions, our feelings as ourselves or our past traumas. And yet it can be liberated and actually change the way we perceive ourselves in reality very quickly.
Totally. Well, first I would say, like you were just giving the example of how you got goosebumps, when you heard it. So whether we realize it or not, or tell ourselves we can feel energy or not, we do. Because we feel like you said you felt it in your body. There was something that was saying, "Yes, that's on." That is the energy of consciousness telling you, "Yes, that's on." And notice how so if you think of energy in the body, that's consciousness made visible. But currently, for most people, it's operating at the biological level. So it is there. It's the energy of consciousness, but it's digesting our food, it's healing our body, it's beating our heart, it's blinking our eyes, it's running all our brain processes with an enormous intelligence we still can't comprehend. Um, and the reason it's just at a biological level is because the mind that we're identified with is kind of keeping it trapped, it's keeping it hostage. So all of those thoughts that I'm identified with are kind of draining either keeping me at a status quo or even draining my life energy down and out. So think of all the worries, all the fears, all the stuff that is occupying our mind. What is that? What are all those thoughts running on? They're running on our life energy. And so if we're very much stuck in our mind and emotions and drama, we're losing that energy. So we don't even have enough prana or energy to run the physical body, much less go back to source. We get sick, we get exhausted, we get tired. So in these practices, as we either release identification with the mind or we make the mind, we use techniques to quiet the mind. What begins to happen is that the mind begins to take a back seat to this energy. So instead of the mind sort of dominating our energy, our mind is able to sort of lift off, riding roughshod over this energy. And now this energy, and this is what happened for you, is that this energy is able to move from a biological force to a spiritual evolutionary force. And when it does that, it's not just going to heal like the physical it will heal the body at an accelerated level, number 1, but it's also going to carry out any kind of catharsis, healing, clearing, physical, mental, emotional. It is literally gonna push it all out. And if you believe in reincarnation, it's not just from this lifetime, it's from lifetimes that is gonna get purged from the system. And not always comfortable, a little bit scary if you don't know what's happening. But if you can find your way through and hopefully find, the right guidance, this can literally clear you of lifetimes of stuff.
I just, if I had what do you call the cheerleader things, I'd be shaking them right now. It's so true. No, it's interesting because this I've been actually working on my kidneys at the moment, in actually going back in and working through different exercises. And I only woke up the other day, felt like I've been punched in the back,
Yeah.
and I had zero energy. And I've got two young children, and I was like to my wife, "Oh my God, I am out. This is." But because of the work and been doing it long enough, I was able to hold enough space. And she said, "Well, what do you need?" I said, "I need to lay down." So I did the chores with the kids and actually laid down into Shavasana. And I just felt it move and the body take over, and it liberated. And I was like, isn't our bodies absolutely incredible? And the old self would have put so much meaning, worry, what is this, what is that, what's going on, and we identify with it in such a different way to what actually is happening.
Exactly, and it's such a beautiful explanation because when most people have these kinds of experiences, they get scared, and they start to overanalyze it, they try to stop it, they try to do something with it, and the more we try to stop it, it wants to clear us out, and just giving the body the space and the time and the room to do what it knows what to do, we just have to get out of the way and let it do it. And it knows exactly where to go, even if we don't, like kidneys, what it needs to do, and all we really need to do is just kinda get out of the way. And the example I often give is imagine that you have this energy that's if you only have a limited amount of energy, the energy in your body is only gonna go to the most important tasks. Just like when you're in your house and you only have 10 minutes, you're only gonna clean what you have to clean to make it look good, but you're not gonna do the deep cleaning because you don't have the time or energy. But now, once this energy is freed, it can do the deep house cleaning. It's going to get into the corners of the shower. It's going to clean out all the gunk. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because you want that stuff clearing out of you because you feel lighter, freer, more clear in your mind, your emotions. Everything becomes more balanced. Your body becomes radiant. Your skin becomes light.
So I love that analogy, by the way. I'll have to steal that one in the future. That's brilliant. With the
Please
house
do.
cleaning. Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? And do you feel then from your experience, and I want to just highlight this point, is when, because we live in a world of distraction, it's so easy to ring someone to just vent and judge and talk about others. It's so easy to just turn on the TV. It's so easy to drink alcohol. It's so easy to take medication or painkillers when ultimately our body's actually just trying to communicate with us and we're just suppressing it. And then the
Yeah.
symptoms are manifesting downstream because we're really so disconnected from ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the volume and then the body, when we just keep pushing it down, we're like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And at some point, it's like, "Well, I'm just gonna increase my volume until you listen to me." And then, sometimes it has to show up as a major illness or headaches or whatever it is so that the body can finally say, "Okay, pay attention to me."
Yeah.
Because we could only get away with that so long.
No, totally. What, as we liberate this energy then, and as we work to freeing that up, to coming back to that sense of inner peace, which we spoke about at the beginning, I always find this curious as well. So this is probably just more a question, but what is our potential then once we start to understand these principles of where can we take this in our lives?
Yeah. So what starts to happen is that we start to live from presence as well as our individual self. And how that shows up, and I'm taking this from the scriptures, I'm not making this up. They talk about how when the mind becomes clear and quiet and balanced, it's like if you imagine that the source is like the sun and it's trying to shine through all these clouds, but it's so clouded. But when the clouds of the mind become quiet, then the sun can shine through. And so it's not that your mind is completely gone, but through your individual consciousness shines the light of this presence. And the way that it's said to show up in us is as an inner knowing. We feel guided, we feel connected. So it's like this energy, once it's completed its journey, it has taken us back to the presence from which it came. So energy and consciousness have now met when we're living in this place where we're connected to source. And from this place, it's like this energy within us is the voice of the presence. It can be an inner voice, it can be an inner impulse. It shows up differently, like a physical sensation that's literally guiding us. Go here. Don't go there. Say this. No, withdraw from that. We're guided from within by this presence.
Mm.
So we don't have to only rely on the mind as our only data point. It's a good data point, but not the only one. It's like your inner knowing, your intuition becomes more alive. You feel more and more love and compassion for people, even the people that you don't wouldn't have liked before or even reacted to. It's You start to see through the facade of who they are, and it's almost like you can see through to the child or to the soul of that person. So even though they're manifesting in a particular way, you can see deeper than that, and even though you might not like their behavior, and even if their behavior may not be acceptable, you have compassion for where it's coming from.
Mm.
And then the last so and then the last is, a sense of bliss. You feel this inner sense of happiness arising from within you, but there's no reason. You just feel it's like a place that you wanna stay and you never wanna leave.
Can that be our default state?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can. And so when somebody is called enlightened, what we call enlightened, they are connected, even though their personality is still there, they are connected to that presence simultaneously. So it's not that the personality is gone, they just know that they're more than the personality.
And ultimately, no, it's interesting because even on my own journey, I feel a separation between the personality and the self more and more. And I actually go vacant sometimes thinking, like, am I just present? Like oh, I need to think. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. So what you're saying is then if we're willing to go back to our house and start to clean more of the rooms and allow the intelligence of the body to do that with the right guidance, we can really start to nurture those aspects and cultivate the very things that you just spoke of. That's what it's boiling down to.
That's really it, well said, and what's beautiful is that energy naturally knows its way back to this presence that we're talking about, this consciousness, because how are you gonna get there? Your mind can't take you there. Now, your mind can take you many places in the world, but it can't take you back to the consciousness from which it came, what preceded it. It can't take you there. So we have to find another way to those spaces. It could be through meditation, where we're observing the thoughts, or through energy, where energy merges with consciousness. It takes us home.
Yeah. On a side note, because I haven't even got into yoga nidra yet, which I wanted to as well. But how much are you living your life from that place of trusting your intuition and knowing if it's a hell yes or a no? Just kind of, I don't know. I'm just kind of, because even spoke to you off air, you're in Iceland right now, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Um, to the person that was studying, doing the degree, which is a very mind-driven form
Mhm.
to now? Like, how do you live your life?
Yeah. I feel like it's a combination of the two. I wouldn't say I do it perfectly by any means all the time, but certainly a good part of the time. And what's interesting is that in yogic teachings, they talk about how when you connect to the presence, you're not just connected to your inner knowing, but your mind, the power, the processing power of your mind, it's like it reaches to a higher level where even your thinking, your intellect is clearer, sharper, it's more focused. There's a certain certainty, clarity, you know what to do and how to do it. Even from the rational side, the mind becomes incredibly strong because it is literally being fueled directly by the energy of the source. So it's like you have intellect that's really strong on the one side, and you have intuition on the other side, both being powered by this consciousness. And that's what I find. I find that my intellect is stronger, my memory has gotten stronger, even as I'm getting older, my memory is getting better. Um, I feel like the clarity of my mind is improved on the intellect side, and then on the intuition side, I go with my gut. Uh, it's literally telling me, and I've learned through repetition to listen to it,
Hmm.
because every time I don't, I'm like, "Oh, I shoulda listened," right?
Yeah, how many of those have we all had? Everyone can agree to that one. So, what is like? Are you teaching yoga nidra in Iceland this week? Is that what you're doing there? Or
I am, yes, yes. So, actually, my husband is Icelandic.
ah,
I met him one of the times that I was coming here to teach, but I am here. I've just finished a yoga therapy program, and now I'm gonna be going into a yoga nidra program.
just on a side note before we go, what's Iceland like? Because I've always been drawn to it, and every time I look at it, I yearn to go there. It must have had a past life there or something. I don't know, but I've never been.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard from mediums who say that Iceland, they're very high souls who are here. Um, it certainly feels, what I can say is that there is a higher level of self-understanding in general, even among the general population. So it's calm. It almost has like a more, I would say, a more feminine, softer energy. Beautiful nature, and the way that people here treat nature is as if we are the guest of nature, because in fact we
We
are.
are, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of, everybody here, most of the people here believe in unseen, spirits, elves, troll, all these different things of unseen beings.
Wow. 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 I'll definitely go in there. Okay, so Yoga Nidra. Can you, I know nothing about it at all. So I'd love to know a little bit more. What are the basic principles of it and what you teach?
Okay. So basic principles, it's meditation, but you're lying down. So that takes out a lot of
Oh,
the, knees and back and those kinds of issues. And it's guided. So we guide you through a series of body, breath, and awareness techniques. And the purpose is to take you down into similar brainwaves, into the same brainwaves as in sleep. But over time, you learn to maintain a very gentle level of awareness. So rather than kind of merging into the state of oneness, which we do every night when we fall asleep, we actually merge into the presence, but biologically so. So we emerged physiologically refreshed, but we're no closer to enlightenment. But in Yoga Nidra, you're going into those same spaces where you're quieting the mind enough that the only thing that's left to experience is the consciousness itself, your source itself. So you're able to rest and as the sky itself. It's kind of like bathing in the presence of who you really are. And each time that you come out, you're a little bit more connected to the presence and a little bit more gap between you and those clouds moving through.
fascinating. Fascinating. So how many days are you doing that for when you're doing it like through that
Yeah.
progression?
So I'm going to be doing a Yoga Nidra immersion. It's 3.5 days, Yoga Nidra immersion. And then in a couple weeks, I'll come back. And those who want to continue on can actually get certified through me. So it's a total of 8 days certification or 3.5 for just a personal immersion.
Yeah, interesting. And is there a framework to that then? Like, what are the kind of how we get introduced to it and how we start to go deeper into ourselves to explore what's there?
Absolutely. Well, the first day I'll say we start with what is the single truth that if known would solve everything, and really showing how as we go into Yoga Nidra, we're actually working backwards through energetic layers of our being. So the physical body being the grossest visible aspect of ourselves, but subtler than that, kind of like the aura. We kind of work backwards with these techniques from the physical body to the energy to the mental to the wisdom to the bliss body, which is closest to the source that we are. And as we go into these very, very subtle states of being, where the mind gets quiet, your energy gets strong, it starts to move from that biological to evolutionary force. And this is also an opportunity. So, according to yoga, many of our core patterns or our karma are held at the very subtlest level of being, the closest that we can be to our source nature. It's like the finest veil between us and the source that we are. And in that finest veil, the bliss body is where our karma, our unfinished impressions from previous lifetimes are there. And yoga nidra, you could it's deeper than lucid dreaming, but just to give you a sense of what we're talking about, we can actually be more deliberate if we want to if there's a particular issue or something that's not working for us, we can actually help shift that karma from these subtle states of being as well.
Wow. That sounds incredible. Are you coming to Australia anytime soon? I'd love to come and hang out.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned I'm gonna be coming in 2027, so it'll be a little while, but definitely would love to have you
Stay
come.
connected. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can definitely help support you there. So wow, where to go with that? Karma. What have you, how would you describe karma and what have you even just witnessed through holding space for so many other people? Because it can feel such a esoteric, off the cuff word that gets
Yeah,
thrown around and used, but there's a practicality to it of what you're actually doing.
absolutely. So I would say in Western terms that karma is really, or you could, some people call it subconscious. I use unconscious. So there are unconscious impressions or imprints, beliefs that we have picked up not only in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes. And these beliefs are like the core programming that then shapes our subconscious mind. So if I picked up a core unconscious programming of whenever my mom was sad, I saw her eat, for example, that becomes an impression in my mind that then gives rise to my own habits and behaviors. So let's say whenever I'm upset, I eat, for example. So the unconscious, these imprints are sort of the core programming that then creates the kinds of patterns and behaviors, attitudes, ways of behaving in the world that are or are not serving us. And so that's really what karma is. And at its biggest, I would say the biggest karmic blocks are the things that are keeping us from seeing that we are already whole. I know I'm going big,
No, please go big.
but that's
Can you
okay.
repeat that, please?
Yes. So our biggest karmic blocks are the beliefs that are keeping us from seeing that we are already whole. So it's like through these lifetimes, we have picked up these sort of illusions of incompletion that are keeping us, it's like all these clouds that are clouding us from seeing, "Oh my god, I'm already it. I'm already the wholeness that I have been seeking." And so really the process of clearing our karma is process of clearing the illusions to see through to the truth that you are already it. You're already the presence.
Is it possible for people to clear all this in one lifetime, or is this just a process? We are where we are on our path, and as we get drawn into it, we clear or what's ready to be cleared. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I believe it can happen either way. There are people who just little by little, lifetime by lifetime, we clear one and we clear another, and so on and so forth. Or sometimes it's like suddenly we see through the story of the incomplete self. And once we see through to the story, to the truth of the wholeness that we are, once you see the truth, you've had that glimpse, everything that is not that begins to burn away. Right. It's like the way I imagine it is like a light bulb behind a film, and the light bulb is the source, and this film is my unconscious programming. I wasn't good enough. My mom didn't love me. My dad did this, all this stuff. And the moment that the film quiets down enough and you have a moment, a split second where you see through to the light bulb, you see the source, you see the truth, and you know, oh my God, I'm the light bulb, not the film. That's the truth.
Yeah, because when I had the light bulb moment, there's no going back. It's like, oh shit, I can't unknow that now. And it's almost like, oh, I gotta go. Just go with the flow almost, because it was like this river that starts opening up, and if the river's getting stronger, and if you keep trying to swim upstream against it, you're in trouble. It was like, okay, I've got to let go of who I think I am and see where this goes, which is
That's
terrifying
yeah,
but exciting at the same
yeah.
time. Like it was everything all in one. Fascinating.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of in one of the Yoga Sutras, it says, once you have seen through to the self, it creates an impression that begins to wipe out all other
Hmm.
impressions, right? Like it literally, and then it takes you, like you can't unsee that. And no matter how long you leave it, you can't unknow it. It's like riding a bike. You had that, somebody has a glimpse once 20 years ago when they were a kid. They can't unknow that. They will forever know that.
Yeah, yeah. Why do we carry that in with us? Why is this karmic loop, if you like, that is that for us to evolve as souls or consciousness? Like, how do you see that operating from, because I know people would say, well, why can't I just come in seeing
Yeah.
the light bulb, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. That would be nice. So what's said is that think of creation like an ocean and sorry, think of source like an ocean or presence like an ocean. And from that, all of creation is like waves arising out of this one ocean. So there is nothing that isn't source, nothing that isn't the ocean. They're all just different manifestations of that same one source. So what's said is the source, because the source is everything, there's no way for it to experience its own nature except to embody, to travel, to forget its own nature, to travel away from itself, only to rediscover itself again. And this is really what the yogis tell us is why we were put here is it was supposed to be. We were supposed to forget our own nature, to travel away so that we can experience who we really are anew. And in that way, it's like the presence gets to discover or experience its own nature over and over and over again.
Hmm. So we truly have to create a separation to experience that. And they say the greater the separation, the greater the suffering, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's like it's almost like a magnetism, though, isn't it? There's a point where it's just innate in us to be called home. That's what I feel like.
Absolutely. And sometimes people feel the call to be called home, but they don't know what it is. And sometimes, it can show up as addiction because we're seeking wholeness. We're yearning for that oneness, but we don't know where to find it. And I've often found that some of the people who are the most spiritual that you will ever meet are people who ended up becoming addicted because they were seeking that oneness, but were never taught or knew where to find it. So, but of course, with this spiritual work, it's the ultimate wholeness. It's not a temporary wholeness or a temporary solution. It's the ultimate.
Hmm. Yeah, I never thought of it like that. So ultimately, when we break this down, then could it be fair to say that whether the experiences when come back to the body and the energy and consciousness and the biology as you spoke of, and that yet when we got the thoughts and the mind that is so active, it's draining our energy, and we've got a hierarchy of needs within the body, so only the things that have the highest attention to keep us alive are getting the energy required, which is allowing everything else to be, well, dying essentially. There's no life force energy in it. And then so through our experiences of this lifetime, through karmic experiences of other lifetimes, through traumas, busy mind, distractions, all of this essentially is denying us from our wholeness. And it's not until we
Mhm.
become still, start to go through different processes. And it doesn't matter how, because the body is intelligent enough to know exactly what to do. We just need to set up an environment for the body to do it, even if we don't believe we can do it, because we've been taught that our whole lives that we're not good enough or whatever that might be.
Mhm. Exactly. And it could be anything. It could be, I love that where you captured it perfectly, by the way. And it could be any space that we give ourselves where the mind becomes quiet. It could be, just a few minutes a day where you just go to your room and lie down and not fall asleep, not be on the phone, not call your friend, you know, but just if I were to be quiet, what would happen? If I were to be sit for 5 minutes, if I were to watch the sunset, what would happen? And you might feel, I'm sure everybody's felt this, where you're sitting on the beach or you're watching a sunset and you feel this sense of incredible happiness come over you. That's a connection to the presence or this subtle tingling in your body. You can literally feel it, but we can't feel it if we don't give ourselves the time. If we're so distracted with all this stuff, we can't, even though it's there, we can't sense it.
Mm. Yeah. I often wonder, and I've mentioned it on a podcast before, I'm sure, but what the world would look like if we were actually taught these principles from day dot, you know, with no real agenda, and imposing the human condition of different belief systems and religions or whatever, but actually just get to the essence of the core of what this is actually all about. Because all different paths lead to the same mountaintop, right?
Absolutely, they do, and, yes, and it's how much time do we even spend just figuring out, "Well, what am I doing here? Like, what's my purpose?" Even though it might not change the circumstances of our life, just knowing what we're supposed to be doing here would be helpful, right? And how to work with it. Um,
Yeah.
so there's a beautiful first line of the Yoga Sutras, which has many interpretations, but it's yoga happens now, or now the practice of yoga begins. And how I like to interpret this for myself is, now that we figured out happiness isn't out there, it's not in more money, a better job. Now that I realize that, even now that I've hit myself against the wall enough, now that the pain is so great, now that I'm in a state of despair, now I'm ready to look for the answer where it really is. And now yoga can begin. Now, when I'm ready to look for my real purpose and where the answers where they really are to this pain we all feel inside, now yoga starts.
Yeah, beautiful. When you look out at the world, what's happening right now, there's a lot of noise going on. There's a lot of different events happening and things. I mean, in the conscious space, even just following different podcasts, there's a lot of talk about that humanity is waking up and so forth. What do you see? What do you witness? What do you feel is going on? Do you think we are becoming more consciously aware as a race?
I do. It doesn't always clearly, it doesn't
Feel
always
like
feel
that?
that way. Yeah, but, it does seem like, if we just take it back to the personal level for a moment, at least for me and most people that I have worked with, actually everybody I've ever worked with my entire lifetime, most people change when they're in pain. That's just it. When it hurts enough, we're willing to change. If everything's going well, nobody's going to look at themselves. Nobody's going to change. Nobody wants to, because everything's going fine. So if we multiply that by humanity, it means we're going to have to suffer in order to wake up, because that's what it takes to get us out of our old way of doing things, our old patterns, never questioning. Then when we're it's like when we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then we're ready to wake up and say, "Okay, now I'm ready to look for those answers where they really are."
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. That's for sure. Even from sitting aside as well. But a couple of questions before we wrap up the podcast is, what is your kind of routine look like? Or do you have a morning routine? Is there things that you just kind of, you know, chip away at it each day to ensure that you don't stray too far from the middle?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So in the morning, I usually do a combination of some body stuff, and I don't do, like, this might shock people, but I don't do like a heavy Ashtanga yoga practice. I don't do anything like super physical. I just spend time with my body. I move, I do, I exercise, but I also, after my exercise, I just spend time breathing, moving my body, listening to my body and feeling how it wants to move. Um, and not just doing a stretch because I'm told I should do it, but actually kind of going in and letting my body guide me. So that, because it's helping me connect with that inner energy, and just sort of saying to it, "You're welcome to wake up and tell me what to do," sort of thing. I call it meditation in motion. So you're moving, but you're so focused. I try to be focused on the sensations and the feelings in my body and let them draw me in to a state of meditation. And then so that's my morning practice, and then usually in the afternoon, right around 2 o'clock, around, when I want coffee or something like that, I do my yoga nidra, which is excellent for balancing my blood sugar. It clears my mind, it helps clear and rebalance emotions. So whatever's happened through the day, it just kind of helps me reset and take on the rest of my afternoon and evening.
How long do those sessions normally go for? Like, or can they go for when you guide people when you lay down?
Yeah, so yeah, the anidra, because you wanna take them down, you wanna go all the way down through all the brain waves, so beta, alpha, theta, delta sometimes, and then all the way back up. So for most people, it takes a minimum of 20 minutes, um, but most yoga nidras last like 35 minutes, something like that. However, they can go as long as 45 minutes, and sometimes I've seen even, an hour or longer. Some people like to just like I said, they just wanna be in that space. You just wanna be there forever. So I would say minimum 20 minutes, usually maximum 45
Yeah,
minutes.
got it. Got it. I'll definitely explore more now that I've had this conversation with you. That's for sure. Um, and just to wrap it up with everything we covered today, is there anything you want to leave the listeners to ponder on?
Well, I think I'll leave it where we started, like, by saying, we are the creators of our experience of life, and part of it is what we choose to put our attention on. You know, we can put our attention on all the crappy things going on, or we can put our attention on friendship, connection, love, and whatever we put our attention on grows. We're not denying the other, but where attention goes, energy flows. And often we put our attention on the things we don't want. And just whenever we remember, the best way to create our experience of life is okay, what experience do I want to create? Let me focus on that.
Yeah, beautiful. Kamini, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed chatting to you, connecting with you, and getting to know you a little. And yeah, enjoy Iceland. It'll be amazing.
Thank you. Come visit me sometime.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much.